Everybody, welcome to Peegs.com. He's Trevor Andershock. I'm Jeff Rabjohns. We are here at the Convention Center in Rosemont, Illinois for the annual Big Ten Basketball Media Day. We just got done talking with Indiana coach Tucker DeVries, coach Darren DeVries, players Tucker DeVries, Lamar Wilkerson. It won't be the last time I make that mistake, but we'll try to eliminate it. Anyway, really good conversation with both coach and players. Trevor, I guess we'll start with you. Let's start with what Coach DeVries had to say. Anything in particular that kind of caught your attention from his Q&A?
Nothing too new. Obviously, we've talked to him multiple times this offseason. We've seen him play in Puerto Rico. We've seen him practice. I would say the biggest thing was him mentioning wanting to shoot threes, but wanting to get paint touches before getting those threes. Obviously, coaches have different ways of getting paint touches. Obviously, post-ups, drives, cuts, and those things. He mentioned that, IU doesn't have a ton of guards or even just overall players that will get to the paint one-on-one, but they will get to the paint using cuts, using each other, using screens, using post-ups here and there, and then they'll use that as the kick out to the outside for threes. I thought that was the one thing I took away from kind of an offensive schematic situation or philosophy thing.
Yeah, I thought when I asked him about just sort of to give us a little more depth on his offensive plan, I thought it was interesting that he emphasized once again that they're going to shoot threes. It's going to be a really big part. I think it's kind of known, but he really emphasized that shooting threes is a big part of who they are, and he's going to recruit to it.
Yeah.
That was interesting. Obviously, coaches can't talk names of unsigned players, but when you look at who they're going after, adding Lon Carvalho to the list of players coming in for an official visit, I think you're starting to get a really clear sense that shooting is not just, okay, on the court, you're going to see shooting, but it's really a big piece of the whole philosophical approach that he has to playing and to building the program. So I thought that was something that was pretty interesting, just as far as, we've now talked to him, 10 times. And we'll have a little more too. We had a little one-on-one time with him, probably next week before I got time to get to that with the big football game this weekend. But there's even a little more what we talked to him about his offensive philosophy, got some more details. But just the fact that, every time we talk to him, shooting. This is really probably, I would say, the number one point of emphasis for how they want to play and what they want to recruit too. I also thought it was interesting where, he talked about what Reed Bailey can do. We kind of saw some of that in the scrimmage, but Bailey being out there handling the ball is something I think we're going to see.
Yeah, he's a great playmaker, especially for his size. I think the big thing to look for with Reed Bailey is how much does he look for his outside shot.
Mm-hmm.
Only took, 40 threes with Davidson last year, and that's with him being the go-to player. How many times does he, get the open look at the top of the key? We've seen it multiple times, Puerto Rico in practices, where he gets the open look, doesn't even think about shooting it, looks to drive instead. I think he will need to at least be a threat from the three-point line. The flip side of that is playing to his strength. The strength is driving, using his size, being a playmaker with the dribble, and looking for his teammates in those situations. So it's kind of a yin or yang. Which way do you want to go? Is it a bad thing he's not looking for the three? Is it a good thing he's not looking for the three? But I think IU will need him to be a threat from the perimeter this year with his shooting ability.
Yeah, it was interesting too in the scrimmage, and we even saw it a couple possessions in Puerto Rico. He can bring the ball up the court on his own. You could even conceivably imagine when the opposing team scores, you could inbound the ball to Reed, have him bring it up. Then all of a sudden, the other team center, maybe if he's a bigger, bulkier, more traditional type, does he try to guard Reed out on the perimeter? Does the other team automatically switch? Does an opponent go, okay, wait a minute, if you're going to have him actually play point forward or almost point guard in a way?
No.
Does the other team have to take a big bulky center off the floor? I think he's one of those guys who can create some mismatches in certain situations. So it's going to be interesting to see how that goes.
I think the other big thing is when he gets a rebound and he can just take it himself and beat, his opponent down the floor. I think that's really the big thing where that really plays into the advantage of the offense. Having that big that can take a rebound and take it end to end instead of having to look for a guard, slow it down, wait for somebody to come back to him, and then, start advancing the ball up the court. Reed Bailey can just grab it and go, and that really helps your offense kind of get those early looks before the defense is set.
One of the newsier things was that Coach DeVries said that 6'7" junior guard Nick Dorn is doing more and is probably going to be ready for some more 5-on-5 and some contact this coming week. Obviously, he's been out. Jones fracture, had to have a second surgery on his foot. But if Indiana can get him to where he can play early in the season, I think that certainly helps them.
Yeah, and he looked good in the non-contact portion of the practice that we saw. Conditioning looks good. When you sit out that long, it's kind of always a worry. Are you going to be able to stay at a high major conditioning level? It looked like he was at least pretty close, within a couple of weeks of getting to that high level. So that would be huge. Another shooter, another floor spacer for IU. I think he would add a lot to this program. And then talking about injuries and such, Tucker DeVries talking about being healthy pretty much for the whole summer, lifting, conditioning, working on his game without having, the shoulder bother him that he has had for multiple years now.
Yeah, that was another thing that it's not really newsy per se, but it's kind of relevant. Certainly that he had a full summer. Coach DeVries said basically he hasn't really had one because he's been in rehab, not training for most of the past 3 springs and summers. I think it was last year he really wasn't cleared until the fall for full contact. And Tucker even said, we asked him about it. He said, I trust my body now. I can initiate contact on both ends of the floor, can go after rebounds. So it's going to be interesting to see what Tucker DeVries we get to see play for Indiana from the jump.
Yeah, that will be great. And kind of expanding on just the overall team aspect of this, it sounded like Lamar Wilkerson bringing the energy, kind of the optimism to the team. Darren DeVries talked about him always having a smile on his face. I thought that was kind of an insight in how this team's going to get along. I think a lot of the past teams have gotten along to a point. The Mike Woodson teams, Archie Miller teams. But if you really have that cohesion, I think that helps your team overall, and it looks like they might have it this year.
Yeah, and just, like Coach DeVries said, having guys who bring energy matters because over the course of the season, you have ups and downs.
Yeah.
You're going to have some games that are tough. Everybody's going to take some losses. You're going to go through tough stretches. Having a guy who brings energy every day, regardless of what happened last night and yesterday's practice and yesterday's game, whatever, that can really help everybody. So I think that's something that certainly could be a positive for Indiana.
And speaking about the energy, somebody asked about the players that brought the energy and were most energetic for the Hoosiers, and Lamar Wilkerson basically named the whole team. So yeah. It sounds like at least in practice, in drills, in conditioning, that the team has a lot of energy, want to get better. That's always obviously a good thing.
Yeah, and I think another thing that helps that a little bit is Darren DeVries is not one of those, I'm going to run him 3.5 hours, grind him down, make it just brutal. He wants it to be energetic. He wants it to be up tempo. Their practices, a lot more 90-minute practices than these 3-hour just war sessions that, I don't know if with as much as we know about physical conditioning, keeping guys healthy, some of that old school, we're going to go 3 hours and just make it brutal. I'm not too sure how much sense that makes over the course of a season that lasts months. And we've seen practices now, and they are up tempo. They are quick. They go from one thing to another. They build from drills to 2-on-2 to 3-on-3 to 5-on-5. I just think there's a lot of things that they're doing that you look at and go, it's 2025. This makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and speaking of the tempo, it seems like this Big Ten overall might be seeing a lot more tempo than we've seen in the past. Obviously, Wisconsin started playing at a much higher tempo last year. Michigan's playing at a pretty good pace. Illinois is solid. So it looks like more and more teams, this isn't your old school, really slow down the tempo type of conference anymore. It looks like more and more Big Ten teams are up in the tempo, with IU being one of them.
Yeah, I think we're starting to see more little bit of a cultural shift in the Big Ten. It's just the league has been maybe a little slow at times on moving into some modern concepts. You have Darren DeVries, you have Dusty May, you've got other guys that just, they have that philosophy. So I think we're going to start to see more of a better brand of basketball in the Big Ten.
Yeah, and I think that's right on par of what I was thinking as well. Eric Musselman obviously has played up tempo in the past, so I do think the overall brand of the Big Ten, you might not have the superstars right now that you would in a different conference at different points. But right now, I think the conference overall is really improving, and it's going to be obviously one of the premier conferences, if not the best conference in America again this season.
Yeah, especially when you start talking about depth. How many teams can make the NCAA tournament, could win an NCAA tournament game. The Big Ten probably starts the year as the best overall conference in the country when you think about depth. Um, a couple other things just from talking with the players. I think like Lamar and Tucker both mentioned just how guys, because in part that it's a new team, because in part the guys just fit. Um, there's a lot of cohesion right from the get go. You don't have guys who, okay, I've been here 3 years, it's my team, or somebody else comes in, okay, you're the new guy. No, you don't get 10 shots. Everybody's kind of coming in and getting to earn their own on their own time. So now it's the old story of you don't truly know your team's chemistry until adversity hits. That's an old coaching cliche. It's true. But when you talk about, okay, what's the starting point? I think the starting point of culture of the program, and again, we're talking the starting point. It's the fall, new coaching staff. They haven't played a game yet. But what you see in practice, what we saw in Puerto Rico, what we heard from here, Big Ten Media Day, I think there's a lot of positives just for what kind of culture is Indiana starting with before games begin.
And I think a lot of it can be attributed to when obviously the coaching staff there and DeVries going through this before, really doing a good job of bringing them all together. But also, you have a lot of older guys on this team, a lot of fifth, sixth-year guys even, with Tucker DeVries, Lamar Wilkerson, Tatum Connerway. Those type of guys have a ton of experience. They're coming to a big-time program. They want to win, but they also kind of just know their self-worth and kind of just what they are bringing to the table already. So they don't really need to go out of their way to try to prove something to their teammates. I think it's kind of just a given that they know what to do and how to get it done.
Yeah. There were a couple of funny moments, one of which was apparently during a TV spot that I don't know if it aired or it was filmed for later. Somebody asked Lamar about Tucker's impact, and Lamar apparently said something about, well, he's an older guy. And when we were talking to the podium session, somebody asked Lamar the same question. And Tucker jumped in and said, man, don't talk about me as an old guy. You're older than I am. So that was a little bit of a comedy up there with them giving each other a little bit of grief during the podium session. But for me, I think those are the biggest takeaways. Any closing points from you as far as what we heard from the coach and the players today?
No, I think it's just the overall view of, Darren DeVries and the players being open and pretty honest to the media about what they have in front of them and what they expect. You talk real basketball with them. They give, sincere answers from players to coaches. I mean, I think that's my biggest takeaway is just how honest they are in a public setting to the media about, their strengths and weaknesses heading into this season.
That's a really good point because when you talk to Darren DeVries or any of the players, and if the questions are basketball questions, you get basketball answers, and they're all you don't get these ridiculous cliche-ridden things or anything like that. You get basketball conversation, and like you said, there's honesty there. Lamar even said it again today. We're not the biggest team, so we're going to have to do certain things defensively, on-ball pressure, whatever. But not up there trying to, sell themselves as something that they're really not. Right. So I think that's really good. And I guess one closing point for me, I thought it was good to once again, Darren DeVries, he talked about how much he wants to connect the program to the community. He mentioned the students. IU has 7,500 student tickets, one of the biggest student sections in the country. DeVries mentioned how important it is that he wants the students to feel connected. He wants to make sure that they're there. He wants them to come to games and be rambunctious and be part of what makes Assembly Hall one of the legendary environments in college basketball. He mentioned the event on Kirkwood where they had the outdoor event for the students.
Right.
So I think there's a lot of things that they're doing that are not only just talking about it, but they're doing it. Yeah. They're going out in the community. They did the thing where, on move-in day, they go out there, carry a little luggage and all that kind of stuff. They're little things, but you put a lot of little things together and they add up. And it's also just a mentality of, hey, who's your nation? You matter, and we, the coaches, the players, we're going to reach out to you and make sure that you know that you matter. And they've also been great with us in the media. Not that really matters, not that anybody cares, but it's just part of the mentality. They were incredibly open with a lot of stuff down in Puerto Rico. Got to spend some time with them. They've opened practices to us. We've been there to watch practice. So there's a lot of openness. Hey, guys in the media, we know you got a job to do. Come watch practice. Hey, community, we're going to reach out to you. So I think those things are all really good things.
And I think you're basically describing the building blocks to the program, where you can get away with not doing them, but at some point it comes back to bite you. And if you lay that foundation right now, I think it does set you up for success down the road. And it looks like they're doing everything right, especially with the community, with the student body, just trying to build that from the floor up and get everybody on the same page, get the enthusiasm rising heading into their first season.
Yeah, all really good points. Well, that'll wrap it up for us on this video segment from here at the Convention Center up in Rosemont, Illinois. Big Ten Basketball Media Day. We will have a lot more coming on Peegs.com. Again, probably going to be next week before I get to some of the other stuff from our other conversation with Coach DeVries. But his Q&A is up, and we've got a lot more coming. So we'll wrap it up right now from here in Rosemont. For Trevor Andershock, I'm Jeff Rabjohns for Peegs.com.